Welcome back to CNN This Morning. Donald Trump will be back in Georgia today for the first presidential debate right here on CNN. This is a state that he lost by less than 1 percentage point in 2020, and it's also where he now faces criminal charges. It's actually in this very county for his efforts to overturn his election loss 4 years ago. And as Trump looks to try to sway voters in this battleground state, the governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp, had this advice for him last night.
I think former President Trump has a great opportunity to really be forward-thinking, not look in the rearview mirror, not focused on the past, but stay focused on the future. Contrast.
Joining me now is Florida Republican Congressman Byron Donalds, a top supporter of Donald Trump's in November. Congressman, thank you very much for being here.
Good to be with you.
So let me start right there with what the governor said. He urged President Trump to be forward-looking and to not be focused on the past. Do you expect that's what we'll see from the former president tonight?
I do. If you've been on the trail with the president, I've been on the trail with him. If you listen to everything that he says, he's been talking a lot, significantly a lot, about what's going on in our country, inflation, the border, foreign policy, all the issues that really matter to the American people, our economy being able to grow and thrive, people being able to get ahead. That's been his focus. Of course, he'll talk about what happened in Lower Manhattan. He might still talk about 2020, but the focus has been the future for the American people and the reason why we must have a change in the White House from Joe Biden to Donald Trump.
So you were actually hosting an event on behalf of the president in Atlanta here, and he called in to the event. And you, of course, are trying to work on generating support, especially among black men, for the former president. I want to just play for our audience who may have not seen it what the former president had to say. Sure. Take a look.
Since that happened, the black support, I think my representatives will tell you this, the black support has gone through the roof.
Yes, it has.
And I guess they equate it to problems that they've had. But since this has happened, like the mugshot, that's the number one mugshot of all time.
So he, of course, was talking about his criminal conviction. Cedric Richmond of the Biden campaign was just here. He called that absolute foolishness. What did you make of the president's comments there? Is President Trump right?
Well, look, I will tell you what he was responding to was, I think, the gentleman that was to my right in that shot. He's the one that brought it up and said that, yeah, in Atlanta here and a lot of places around the country, but specifically in Atlanta, there were black men who said, wow, they're going after Donald Trump. Well, let me look into this more. I mean, I honestly, how bad can he be if they're going after him like this? What happened in Lower Manhattan was
What do you mean, how bad can he be?
What happened in Lower Manhattan was a violation of his constitutional rights. Alvin Bragg and Judge Merchan never even allowed in the original indictment what the underlying crime is. The jury pool did not have to agree on what the criminal law was to find him guilty. Even the Supreme Court has just came back in another case a few weeks ago and said that juries are not allowed to do that. You have to agree on the element of a crime. That did not happen in Lower Manhattan. People are watching what happened. They see the unfairness. They see that it is political because even that charge, you talk to legal scholars, that charge has never been brought against anybody, would never be brought against anybody except Donald Trump. So I think and I'm going to make this point, is this clear?
Yeah.
When we're looking at the justice system, we all agree nobody's above the law, but Donald Trump's not below the law either. And I think that you do have black men in particular, but men, other women in our country who saw what happened there, and they say, man, this is political, this is not fair. And so why are we trying to criminalize Donald Trump simply because he's running for president? That's not right. The American people, I think, agree with that.
Yeah, all I was going to say was, apart from there are a lot of arguments, our lawyers have had all the arguments about the specifics of the case, but the sentiment that you are getting at, you do believe that there is an identification among the black community the way he said because of this? I
don't believe it. I've heard it from people. In my travels through the country, here in Atlanta, I've heard it again yesterday. There are people who are saying this is not right. So if they're going to go after him like that, well, frankly, what else is he trying to do for the country? Because then they're listening to what he's talking about, what it means to actually have a growing economy, getting inflation under control, building generational wealth for families. They're listening to his message in part because of what's happened through these criminal proceedings. I think if you were to ask Democrats today, they would admit that this lawfare strategy has backfired against them.
Congressman, we were talking earlier in the show about January 6th and how this is the first time that these two men will confront each other face to face in the wake of that. And we showed some of the footage from Donald Trump's rallies. He calls those who have been convicted or jailed because of their roles hostages. Do you think he should call them hostages on the stage tonight? Is that a message for the millions of Americans that are going to be perhaps tuning into this race for the first time?
Well, look, I'm not going to speak to what he's going to say on the stage. I've heard him say a lot of different things about some of the January 6th detainees, some of which are still sitting in a D.C. jail, still haven't been afforded their day in court. If you talk to those inmates and all the things that have happened to them, the fact that they've been investigating their case, trying to get legal writings to their attorneys, that stuff was taken from them in a D.C. jail, a violation of constitutional rights. The fact that you had the U.S. attorney in D.C. who's using obscure law and charging it up massively to try to get the maximum amount of jail time for people who, and I'm not talking about people who are fighting with police officers. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about people who are breaking windows. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people who are at the Capitol or might be walking through the Capitol. I was on the floor that day. January 6th was a very tough day for our country. I fully acknowledge that. I was there. But at the same time, we're going to go back to the justice system. It's got to be fair and even-handed. We got to be consistent with the rule of law, the application of law. And there is a legitimate argument that the U.S. attorney in the District of Columbia has simply overcharged people who were on Capitol Hill on January 6th. Meanwhile, other violent crime in Washington, D.C. is either not being prosecuted or they are decreasing the charge. That's not right.
All right, Congressman Byron Donalds for us this morning. Congressman, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.